Hello guys, welcome back to the 401 Files. My name is Ben. I create content here on the 401 Files with everything that you could possibly consider to be thought-provoking. That could include the UK wildman, Bigfoot, extraterrestrials, UFOs and even the paranormal. I'm joined tonight by Justin from Mountain Beast Mysteries, and a lot of you guys in the past have asked me and Justin the same type of questions when it comes to getting out into these areas, looking for Bigfoot, looking for extraterrestrials and UFOs, and those questions are often about how we prep, how we get ourselves ready, the equipment we use and things like that. So I thought it'd be great to do a live session where me and Justin talk about a few of those questions that you guys might have, and stick around as well to the end of the video because we're going to do like a questions and answers session. So if you guys get your questions ready towards the end of this live, there will be a period where we will dive into the comments there and start answering everybody's questions. So without further ado guys, I'm going to invite Justin into this live stream. Hello Justin.
Hey Ben, how's it going?
Yeah, I'm good mate, I'm good. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I got you.
Awesome. So I'm just praying that the internet holds out tonight. A few of you people that have joined our live chats before, I've spoke about it, but I live in the middle of nowhere and the internet out here isn't always great. So fingers crossed the internet will hold out. It's been good so far, so fingers crossed. Justin, I've just explained to everybody there at the start of this video that a lot of the questions that we seem to be asked about our YouTube videos, about the process of getting out there and exploring for evidence of Bigfoot, extraterrestrials, etc., is usually about the kit that we use, the technology and what kind of a kit that we take out there with us, but not always just like camera equipment, audio equipment, camping equipment as well. So I was explaining that it'll be a nice video to sit down and go through your process, the equipment you take out, and just let everybody know how you go from a simple thought into a fully fledged Bigfoot documentary, because it's not as easy as everybody might first imagine.
No, I guess to kind of start out, you have to figure out what aspect of the subject you want to like focus on.
Yeah.
Are you exploring the topic in general for like people who I guess are new to it, or are you looking into the supernatural stuff, or you kind of got to decide what route you want to go down and then go from there, I guess.
Yeah, I know when I first got into video making, this was a few years back, when I first started making videos, I didn't even talk on camera. A lot of my stuff was like B-roll, and for anybody that doesn't know what B-roll is, that's the pieces of footage where there is no talking, it's just like panning around a certain scene. That's kind of what your B-roll is. So a lot of my footage in the early days was just that, B-roll, no talking, and it takes a hell of a lot, like just to be able to speak on camera, be able to come across in the way that you want, as well as the money side of it as well, like being able to pay for all these different bits of software that you might need to use. Like music isn't free, the editing software isn't free. These are things that I didn't realize when I first jumped into this subject of videography.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah,
Did you realize it was going to cost as much as it did?
When I started making Wildman, my search for Sasquatch, I think at the end of the day, I was like 20 grand in the hole.
Oh,
doing everything
nasty.
Without planning. Like, yeah, that's like travel costs as well, and like,
yeah,
it was pretty savage.
There's just so many hidden costs that you wouldn't expect that come along with and that only gets more and more the better you get. Like when you first start out, it's okay to use a cheap camera, it's okay to use the audio that's built into your phone, but as you get better and you get a bigger audience and people want to see better and better quality, you have to start investing, and it isn't cheap. But these are things that I didn't realize when I started getting into video making, but yeah, you soon do realize that it's an expensive hobby.
Yeah, you have to like pick your gear based on like what you're doing too, like for the environment you're in. Like you need stuff that's gonna last,
yeah,
and be able to hold up to being outside. But like nowadays there's more cameras on the market than ever before that shoot really good quality video and photographs, so it's easier. I think it's easier nowadays than it was for when we started out to kind of get into it, because you can buy some really great used equipment.
Yeah, but it's in the same breath, it's also confusing as well. Because if I had to jump in now from the beginning, and I didn't know anything about cameras, like you said, because there is so many cameras, it can be off-putting or confusing as to which one to get. But the flip side to that is that the majority of cameras, even the basic, the entry-level cameras these days, are pretty good. So that is
Yeah.
the flip side to that. A lot of it is trial and error as well. Like, there's been so many times that I've bought kit, camping kit especially, tents, waterproofs, things like that, that you spend the money on and you go out just to find that they're no good. Like, they didn't work in the way you expected them to. So a lot of this is trial and error as well.
It's true. Yeah, I've
Yeah,
gone through so much gear.
it's unbelievable.
Like
Yeah,
there's nothing that's perfect. You
no,
find out.
and you
Everything
always
has its ups and downs.
yeah, and you always find how they could make things better. This is really stupid because if I put half of my complaints, like for example, I have a tent and I always think to myself, oh, they could have done this better. They could have added a zip there or a window there. If for every time I said these things about different equipment or kit I use, and I went to Dragon's Den with these ideas, I'd be a multimillionaire by now.
Maybe.
Yeah. So I want to just dive into the whole process of getting out there into these areas, searching for Bigfoot, searching for extraterrestrials, the planning stage, what goes through your mind, like your thought process, and some of the obstacles that you may come across as well. So, the first question I'm going to ask you, Justin, is what is the biggest obstacle? Like when you're out there, you're in the middle of nowhere, miles away from civilization. You can't just hike back 2 miles and be in the nearest town. Like you're in the middle of nowhere. What is typically the biggest obstacle that you face?
The biggest obstacle is probably myself and my
Yeah,
own mind. Because, like, I mean, you feel like scared sometimes, and that's one element of it. You feel like feelings of fear, especially when you're alone. But the other part of it is when you go out to these places lugging around all this crap and, like, you have to make something. It's hard
yeah,
to sometimes bring yourself to do all that and to stay motivated when you're tired, and you have to focus on, like, oh, I gotta, like, make something to eat and figure out where I'm gonna sleep, and, like,
yeah,
there's so
100%.
many different things you have to think about.
There is. And sometimes you're just mentally not there. Like, you don't wake up every single day thinking, right, today's the day I'm going to go make the best video I've ever made. Those days are few and far between. There's been actually many more times that I've been out to make a video and come back with nothing and then ended up
Yeah.
kicking myself later on because I just wasn't mentally in that space. And there's also the element of doubt as well, I find. After doing this for so many years and getting out into these areas of high strangeness where a lot of these reports come from regarding wild man and Bigfoot extraterrestrials, when you get out there time and time again and you come up with very little evidence, you do start to doubt yourself and these claims. And the thing is, I know within myself, I'm a massive believer that these things do exist, but those days do come. You'll sit there in the middle of the North Yorkshire moors, I'll look up at the sky, I'll see nothing, and this happens for weeks on end sometimes. And yeah, it's very testing and
Yeah.
demoralizing at times.
Yeah, I've done that, like, a lot myself. I've gone out and just wasn't feeling it and turned around and came back, or didn't really
Yeah,
film much of anything, or and, like, sometimes when I'm doing a project, they'll be completely random. Like, I'll just go out, film a bunch of stuff, and not do anything with it, and let it sit. And then I'll go out again and film more stuff. And then once I have enough stuff, like footage and
yeah.
whatever, I'll try and create something with that. You know?
Yeah. So again, like we said there, that for any of you guys trying to get out there, I know that a lot of you contact me and say you want to make your own YouTube channels, you want to get out there and start looking for these things, as I do and as Justin does. A big part of this is the mental game. You're not always going to find stuff. You're not always going to go out there and hear anything. It's just going to be you in nature, and you've got to be mentally strong and understand that it's the chances of you finding anything are slim to none. So yeah, mentally is a really big part of this, being mentally strong. So has there ever been a time, Justin, when you're out exploring and you've had, like, say, a near-death experience, like maybe a close call with a bear, a falling tree, or even just the elements?
There was one time a couple years ago. a few years
Yeah.
ago. I think it was winter of 2018. This video is not on my main channel. It's on my Patreon page. But I was hiking up this mountain in the winter. There's snow and ice everywhere, and I was hiking to this cave. And I made it to the cave all right. The snow was like really deep, and there were some really steep slopes. And on my way back, I was kind of making my way down this really steep, like rock slope, very steep. And there was like a narrow ledge I was walking along that was probably like a foot wide. And below that, it was like a 25, maybe 30-foot drop to the bottom.
No. No thanks.
And I ended up slipping. And I fell a little bit and caught another little edge with my crampon, and I almost like fell all the way down to the bottom.
That would have been certain death, right?
Well, I would have been hurt probably for sure.
Yeah.
And I was by myself, and I was like a couple hours from my vehicle, so
Yeah, I've had some eerie experiences as well. These were in the early days where the weather. This was during, I think, what year was this? 2000. I'm not sure exactly, but here in the UK we experienced something called the Beast from the East. Really cold weather front came in for about 3 or 4 days, blanketed everything in white snow, and I was going down an old, like an old country lane that hadn't been used. Huge, where the tractor tyres had just basically forced their way down this lane. So I'm starting to go down in my car, and things are good at this point. But then all of a sudden, the road kind of narrows and narrows and narrows. And to the right of me is a massive drop, like 20, 30-foot drop easy. And to the left of me is an embankment, so I can't turn left and I can't turn right. And in front of me, the road started to narrow pretty much to a dead end. Now I can't turn around at all. The car is completely stuck. It was one of those scenarios where you're just thinking, right, the next corner I'll be able to stop, the next corner I'll be able to stop or turn around, and came to a dead end. The snow came in really, really fast, temperatures plummeted, and I was stuck in the middle of the North Yorkshire moors there in freezing cold conditions. So yeah, I had to leave the car for about 2 or 3 days before I could return to get that, pull out of the snow. But again, it's just something that pops up. You didn't expect that to happen, and these are how accidents sometimes happen, but what an experience.
yeah,
Great,
I mean,
great experience.
you have to put effort into making sure you're prepared for that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Like
definitely.
sometimes it's hard to prepare if like a vehicle breaks down. But
What I should start doing is I should start bringing spikes along, or the things for the tyres to put on the tyres, give me a bit more traction. I should definitely
yeah,
put them in the boot.
yeah, that's a pretty good idea.
So
Don't
do
want
you
to
ever
get
take...
stranded.
No, definitely not. Definitely not, because it can quickly turn as well. Like, you could be out having fun one time, excited about making a video, and the next minute you could be trying to fight for your own life in these situations. So yeah, you've got to be prepared for as much as you can. So do you ever take like an extra cameraman, an extra pair of arms out with you to carry extra equipment, anything like that?
The only time I really did that was on my first film.
Yeah,
In the second part of that, I had 3 other guys with me, and they were helping quite a bit, and they were pretty stoked to like be out there and look for Bigfoot and film it all at the same time. So I mean, and on that trip we had a lot of weird stuff happen, which is cool. But
what
a
trip
lot
was
of
that
times
one?
it's hard. That's in my first Wildman film.
Yeah,
Yeah, in the second part you can watch all that, but sometimes it's hard to coordinate with other people and to find people
yeah.
who are actually like willing to go out camping in these spots.
And I
So
guess
most of the
the
time,
fitness levels play a part as
yeah,
well.
yeah, they do. Um, but yeah, most of the time it's easier to just go by myself. I can just go whenever I want and don't have to worry about other people or keeping people safe or.
Yeah. Am I right in thinking, Justin, that you are a trained guide, wilderness guide? Is that right?
Yeah, that's what I went to college for.
Yeah. So you see,
So
that's all that. Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say that the program I took was called Adventure Tourism and Outdoor Recreation.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a 2-year program to learn how to be a wilderness guide. And near the end of it, I was kind of specializing in like river guides, and like I was guiding whitewater rafting trips in Jasper National Park after school. So
That's a great thing to know. It's a great thing to have behind you, I suppose, if you're heading out
yeah.
to these areas that you get into. So awesome, well done for that. Do you? Sorry, what do you ever miss the most when you're out in these places looking for Bigfoot? Like, I know that you spend a lot of time, maybe 2 or 3 days at times in these areas. So, what is the one like creature comfort that you sit in your tent at night thinking, "Oh man, I really wish I had that right now."
I don't know, like cheeseburgers.
Yeah, cheeseburgers.
It's usually like a food item. Like, man, I wish I had this or that. Like, I'm usually fine with equipment,
Yeah,
like a little tent,
I think
or like in my early films, I would just build like lean-to shelters, and that was good enough. But
I think mine would
nowadays,
possibly
I
be
like to bring a tent.
in. Yeah,
Internet?
I think mine would possibly be internet connection. I know that sounds really
Yeah.
sad. Like a lot of people would say, you're in these beautiful areas and you shouldn't be on your phone. You shouldn't be doing. But yeah, just the fact that I can just log onto my phone and be on Facebook or Instagram and see what the world's doing. I don't know. I just feel a bit more secure when I know that I've got internet access. And in a lot of these areas where I go, there is no internet access. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah, same here. But like when you disconnect from that, you're more like aware of what's going on around you. You're frozen up on me, Ben. I don't know if all you guys can see this, but Ben is frozen. I think we're gonna lose him. Looks like we're doing the one-man show. Yeah, I usually think about like food stuff when I'm out in the bush and I'm by myself. That's the stuff that makes me most comfortable. What kind of like snacks and stuff I can have. Because when you hike out for kilometers and kilometers for a really long time, then you don't really know, or you don't really have like the best food. You got like dehydrated meals and stuff like that, and living on that for a few days is like the worst. It's pretty crappy. So that's the one thing I guess I like dream about when I'm in the bush. So yeah, I'm gonna see. I'm gonna message Ben here and see if we can get him back.
hello.
Yo, Ben, what's up?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I'm back. Sorry, guys, about that. Like I said at the start of this live, is that my internet out here is terrible. So, thank you for sticking with me. I can see there by the people in the chat that we didn't really lose too many people. So, Justin, thank you for keeping that going while I was away. And again, I apologise. So, I've got a question here from Yorkshire Explorer, and basically he's asking, how do you think you'd react if you saw something that you weren't looking for? So maybe not necessarily if you're in that situation, it'd be hard to tell. But do you want to add to that, Justin?
Sorry, you kind of cut out there a bit.
Okay. So where did I get to?
I don't know, just ask the question again.
Okay. So Yorkshire Explorer asks, how do you think you'd react if you came across something or you saw something that you wasn't out there actually looking for? So you're out there looking for Bigfoot. What if you saw a UFO? Do you think you'd be
Oh,
yeah?
well, I mean, it would be strange and freaky, but I would definitely just investigate it the same as I would with like any kind of Bigfoot related phenomena, you know?
Yeah. Is
Because
that
like if they could be related. So
exactly?
I know you believe
Which
that.
I do. It's something I talk about a lot on my channel. Is the UFO Bigfoot connection? Is that something you're going to dive into more as well? Because I've been asking you to do this for so long now. Because I just think you creating a UFO style documentary would be amazing.
It's been on my mind for a while is exploring the UFO
Yeah,
phenomena, but like um maybe starting out doing that specifically, and then maybe later kind of looking into both subjects and how they relate.
Yeah.
You know,
Are you swaying any more to this idea of the connection with? No, you're not swaying at all. I cannot twist your arm at all, can I?
No. I've never been like big on that. I just don't see
You can't see the connection.
I know you've gave some points
Yeah.
on why you believe that, but I'm just like, it's
Yeah.
more likely something more, reasonable, I guess.
A lot of people in the comments here, Justin, saying that you saved the show. So again, thank you for doing that, mate.
Dude, it made me nervous. Like, left me on my own, stranded me.
So Justin, when you head out, before you get your bag, before you head into the car and start hitting the road, do you already like have a plan in your mind? Like, do you do storyboards? Do you have a shot list? Anything like that, or do you just go there and wing it?
I usually just wing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know I'm going on this trip. I'm going to this area. I have kind of an idea of like the layout of the film. I guess in the sense of like the basic structure, but not like individual shots or scenes or anything like that.
Yeah,
because I can't plan for what's going to happen. Like, I don't know what's going to happen, so I just go out and film it all, and then worry about putting it together later.
Yeah, I plan quite a lot. Mainly, like if I come across something in like an article, or I see something on the internet, or I hear something on a podcast, I'll take a quick note and I'll think that'd be a great thing to mention on this video. So I take a lot of notes about what I'm going to say, really. Just that I think would add value to my audience. Do you know, if maybe they've not heard that before, or if something's wowed me, like I've heard someone on a podcast say something that's just completely blown my mind, I maybe jot that down and take notes that way. I have tried storyboarding before, where I draw little cartoony type scenes so I can build up a visualization in my head of what I want it to go like, but that never really worked out that well for me, so I didn't stick with that, to be honest.
Yeah, and for like most of the time, like storyboards are only good if you're doing like scripted work.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I find
you're
they
controlling
completely
everything.
throw me. Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is that if it's too scripted for me, like if I go out there and I plan it scene by scene, it throws me completely, and I just feel like it's too choreographed, and I don't like it that way.
Sometimes I'll like write down if there's like different points I want to make in the video. I'll just kind of write those down so I remember like the things I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
But that's pretty
Similar
much that's as far as it really goes, as far as, planning the actual film, really.
Yeah. What item of kit do you feel would help you out massively? Like, is there an item of kit that you have wanted for a long time, or that you're saving for? For me, it's something as simple as game cams. I would love like 1 or 2 game cams. That's something I've been talking about getting now for ages. So just wondering, is there any piece of kit out there that you would really find beneficial when you're out there?
I don't know. I just like this stuff like better lenses and like, I don't know, little things like that. There's always a better camera. There's always better lenses that make life more easy, especially when it starts getting like dark out. If you don't have a fast lens or a camera with a like really sensitive, clean image sensor, then sometimes it makes things really difficult when it gets dark and you get really crappy footage. But
how about night vision equipment? Have you got any night vision?
Yeah, I have a Bushnell night vision monocular, and it records video, and I use that in my Bigfoot Beast of the North documentary. That's the last one I made back in the fall.
I always find with night vision that even when you're not looking at something specific, so you're not even on a Bigfoot, you're not on a UFO, but just looking through night vision always makes me feel eerie and creeped out. I think it's that.
Does.
I don't know what it,
I'm like, I don't want to see what's out there. And I just imagine, what if I'm like scanning in the distance and I all of a sudden see something standing there like in the trees, like,
wow. Exactly. And when we start talking about things, or we start going down the route of like thermotechnology, like that picks up heat, we're talking ridiculous prices at this point, aren't we? So I mean, everybody that goes hunting for Bigfoot, everybody that goes out there looking for extraterrestrials, etc., would love some kind of heat sensing capabilities, but realistically, the price range on those things is just through the roof. I will have to look at getting one of those binoculars, though, that you've got, the night vision ones, because that is something I'd definitely like to invest in.
Yeah, they're more reasonably priced than the thermal, obviously, but like at the same time, you always have to be thinking about how much stuff you're taking with you. Like it adds up quick. So
Yeah,
you don't want to be like completely bagging yourself carrying all this crap, and then you're miserable at the end of the day.
Yeah, I've done that a few times.
Yeah, I've like stopped carrying a drone. It's like
really
like the shots
the
shots look really good, but like it's not really worth it at the end of the day to me to be carrying around all this stuff. And like to be honest, drone stuff to me feels like completely overused on YouTube. Like you know,
see,
just a easy
I'm
way
a massive
to, I
fan
guess,
of drone
enhance.
footage.
I know you are.
Yeah, you've seen my stuff. I'm a massive fan of drone footage. I think it was, I think that came from when you first told me about the Mavic Mini. Just the idea that I can stick that thing in my pocket and get it up in the air within 10 minutes. I also feel as well that drone footage just adds like to the eeriness of any scene. Like if you fly a drone over a forested area to give everybody that scale, I don't know. I've seen a lot of YouTube videos as well where people have used drones to pick up creepy movement or some strange being lurking in the forest. So I don't know. I just find it adds a bit more of an eerie feel to my videos.
But you can also create those same feelings without a drone. And if you don't say anything about it, after people watch the film, they're not going to be like, dude, there wasn't any drone stuff in there. Like, that was crap.
Yeah.
You know,
well,
they're
this
not
is the thing, yeah. Because at one point I didn't have a drone and nobody ever said, oh, you need to get a drone. Maybe they did, one or two people, but the majority of people didn't care. And then I got a drone, and it's not like anybody on the flip side of that has said, oh, your videos are so much better with a drone. So, yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, like, take a movie for, like, a feature film, for example. Let's say, like Saving Private Ryan is, like, Academy Award-winning war movie, all shot, like, documentary style. No aerial shots at all. Won Academy Awards. Like, nobody...
That would be awesome,
like, there's no aerials in this. Yeah, like...
Yeah. So, do you have any inspirations, like other people that you maybe watch for motivation, maybe try and get a few shot ideas that they're using, and you better say 401 files, otherwise I'm ending this live.
Are you talking like just other
anything, like other YouTubers,
like...
documentary, filmmakers, anything, any guy or any channel that you like where you go to for inspiration?
I like to watch. There's these old documentaries from like the 70s. I'm sure everybody's heard of Jacques Cousteau. He was a famous like ocean explorer back in the day, and they made like a ton of old documentaries about like diving and stuff like that. But you can find them all on YouTube. There's a series called Jacques Cousteau's Adventure, or Jacques Cousteau's Odyssey is what it's called.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of episodes you can watch on YouTube, and it's just, man, it's like the early documentary filmmaking from like the 70s is so good, and just like,
yeah, it is.
It's all narrated. It's all narrated, so they shoot the footage on film, obviously, and then all the dialogue is mostly just like added in later.
Yeah.
It's just like, I don't know,
basic,
it's kind
but
of like
it's so
charming
effective.
in a way. Yeah.
So
I like
the narration,
that kind
like,
of, yeah, I like all that old stuff.
The narration is perfect.
It is perfect.
It is. Like, you listen to some of the old narrators from back in like the early 80s, 70s, their voices are just so perfect for every scenario as well. You can have a guy narrating a horror film, then jumping straight to a comedy. It's just, they were absolutely amazing at that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's this other show. It's it's from like maybe early 2000s. It used to be on, I think it was on Animal Planet maybe, or Nat Geo. I can't remember. It's called Austin Stevens Adventures.
Yeah.
He's kind of like the crocodile hunter, but he's from like Africa, South Africa.
Is that a young guy? I think I've seen him. Is it quite a young guy?
No,
No.
He's older.
I must be thinking of Steve Irwin's son or someone. I think he's now taken up a similar role as what Steve Irwin was. That's who I'm
Yeah,
probably thinking
maybe.
of. Yeah.
Maybe, but if you go on YouTube, you can find full episodes of this Austin Stevens adventures. He has another one called Austin Stevens Snake Master. He's like a nature guy, so a lot of his stuff he's like looking for reptiles, lots of snakes. It's kind of like the Crocodile Hunter, but the
Yeah.
filmmaking quality in it is just like incredible, and the narration, and he has just a unique, like, really good energy when he's talking in front of the camera, and it's just like amazing. So I recommend people checking that out on YouTube. Check out Austin Stevens Adventures and Jacques Cousteau's Odyssey, and that's like usually what I look at when I need motivation or inspiration.
Yeah. What is it you take away from their productions? Is it the way they format things, the way they put things together, in the order they put them together, or is it pretty much what is it that you bring away from that? You
Honestly,
see, I look for
it's mostly the motivation. I
yeah.
watch that and it gets me like pumped up to go and do something similar. So
See, I tend to go on things like Amazon Prime and type in like Bigfoot documentaries or movies, and I do the same on YouTube as well, and hope that I find something there that gives me inspiration. But yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Like you never stop learning, you never stop wanting to get better. There's never a point where you just think, right, that's it, now I know everything. I always keep searching for like people that are producing way better content than me, just so I can get ideas and look at how they're doing things. It's always a learning curve, and I absolutely love that. Like any artist, I suppose, if you're taken to painting, it's the same thing. You never stop learning. So, Justin, when you're out and you're camping in these areas, and we've already established that these areas are in the middle of nowhere, there's no help around, I've got to ask this question because it's a strange thought for me living here in the UK to think of this, but when you've been pitched up, you've set up a camp, has there ever been an occasion where, like, say, a bear or something like that has stumbled through camp?
I've never had like a bear come up to my camp.
You see, I asked that
Um,
question because here in the UK, obviously, we don't have any apex predators as such, and so it's just a really weird thought for me that you could go out there camping and that could happen. Like, I don't know how often you see these bears or wolf in Canada, but I assume that it would be quite a lot. Maybe
there
I'm
there
wrong.
was a trip. There was a trip I did. I think it was last July, and I was hiking like pretty far into the bush to this little lake called Hidden Lake. There's a video about it on my channel, and I had hiked into that area, and on the way to my destination, I ran into a guy who was also camping by himself, and he asked if I had ran into the like Fish and Wildlife officers, and I'm like, no, I didn't even see them, but apparently they had talked to that guy and said that a bear had like tried to get into somebody's tent like a little while
Wow.
before. So like I was thinking about that all night. I spent the night out there, and I'm like, oh crap. like I didn't bring a gun on that trip or anything. Um, but I remember when I hiked out the next day, um, and I got back to my car, there was like yellow caution tape all over like the trailhead, like where you start, because they didn't want people going in there anymore. Because they do that whenever there's a bear that's like a problem bear. They'll close down
Yeah.
trails. So, but like
On one of your
usually, like I've done lots of like bear safety training,
yeah.
and like you usually don't cook your food where you're sleeping. you know, Anything that smells, you don't have anywhere near your tent. So
Yeah,
if
I've
you
seen
follow those
videos where
rules,
people hoist it up into the trees.
yeah, yeah, that's a good way to do it. But there are also lots of people on YouTube who are like cooking right where they sleep. I'm like, holy shit, you guys are crazy.
Yeah. In one of your videos, Justin, I saw that when you came back to the vehicle that you'd headed out there in, there was some kind of like weird prints on the vehicle.
Yeah,
Is that right? Do
yeah,
you want to talk a bit about that? Because I'd be interested to
yeah,
hear like the backstory to that.
yeah. So I just made a video about this the other day, and that was on the first film, Wild Man: My Search for Sasquatch, and
Yeah.
I had brought three other guys out to this spot near Nordegg. Two of them I worked with in like wildland firefighting, and the other guy was the brother of one of the other guys. So we all like knew each other. And we got to the spot on the first day, and it was like late in the day, and as like night was falling, we're sitting around the campfire talking, and it's getting late, and I think it was around midnight, we heard this loud crack in the woods, like really close to our camp. And we're like, what are the odds, man, like that we hear this sound right here in this Bigfoot area? And we kind of like walked up in the night to where we had heard this noise but didn't really see anything. So we kind of decided the next day in the morning we'll get our gear together and we'll head out and explore the area in the daylight. Well, we got all our gear together, and then before we headed out, one of the guys noticed on one of the vehicle windows there were these like weird handprints. And so like at that point, I was pretty like new to all this, and I didn't know that was like a Bigfoot thing really.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like weird to all of us, and the other guys were very like most of them were skeptical of all of this at that point. So we were trying to like pick it apart as to like what it could be, but the fingerprints were like very prominent and oily and weird, and they were small too. Like our hands were bigger than them. So it was creepy in that sense. Like so we didn't know what it was. But
what were the chances of anybody else following you out there at that point?
Oh, there was no one out there.
No. Yeah.
No, that was like a dead end road. But so if something had like came into camp and did that, it would have had to have been moving like a ghost.
Yeah.
Like, because in that first night, we barely like left the camp area. We maybe walked down the road a little ways for like a brief moment in time, but and like I didn't find out till like maybe a year or two later that was like other people were experiencing that.
So what is it that's happening there? Are they appearing? Because I know that there's a lot of stories where these Bigfoot type creatures peer through windows. Is that what you think was going here, or do you think it was just curious of the vehicle?
I don't know. If it is Bigfoot, I think it was just a curiosity thing, because like if you look at the handprints and you imagine somebody doing that, like the prints didn't really match up with that kind of like shape. It was more like doing that, which is like.
And there's no denying it. They were definite prints. Like when you look at the video.
Oh yeah, like
it's unmistakable. They are definitely prints of some kind.
Yeah. So I just saw a thing yesterday. Somebody posted. There's a guy named Doug Hijack, and he's the producer of a show called Monster Quest. I don't know if you heard of it.
I have heard of that. Yeah.
A really famous show about like cryptids and Bigfoot, and he had done quite a bit of research on that, and yeah, apparently it's super common actually, which is I had no idea at the time. So we were kind of lucky that was like one of the first things that we ever experienced.
How far would you say the car was from camp then? So where you was initially camped, how far did you park the car away? Relatively
Dude,
close,
the car was like 20 feet away.
Wow.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. If it came into camp that night, it would have had to been like a ghost.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
And like we didn't see any like footprints or anything around the car either. So.
Yeah. Talking of footprints, I've seen another clip as well on one of your videos. I actually do look through all your videos, and I'm always super excited whenever you post. But a recent one was about some of the prints that you'd found on your times out exploring, looking for Bigfoot evidence. And there was one that was in moss, and you was unable to get a plaster cast off that one. Yep. But I was just going to ask the question, is that something that you do carry normally, like plaster cast?
I sometimes have some in my vehicle.
Yeah.
But I usually don't like hike with it. It's so heavy. So it's like you might be able to get away with carrying like enough for one track cast. But yeah. I usually don't. That track though, that is the one we found the day that we found those handprints on the car window.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so strange. And so
not
how far was?
Not far. I was going to ask. Like a few 100 yards, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we talk about Bigfoot, and you just said there that it looked like it was a juvenile if it was a Bigfoot that was peering through the car window.
Yeah.
Do you think that, like with animals in the wild that we know of, a lot of those animals will stick around with their parents for a few months up to a few years? Do you think there's a period where these Bigfoot creatures are just left to their own devices and they have to go their own way, or do you think they stay as like a pack, as a family? What do you think happens there?
I feel like they probably would stay as like a family.
Yeah,
They're not your average animal. They're more people-like,
yeah,
you know? And like in a lot of reports, like there's been reports in Alberta here where you'll see a big one and then you'll see little ones with it. And like there's the Albert Osman story where the guy was taken away. He was kind of kidnapped in his sleep, and it was a family. It was 2 adults and 2 juveniles. Just based on like the anecdotes, I would say like they probably stick together, especially if they're trying to remain hidden.
yeah. The Albert Austin story, is that where they kept him hostage for a few days? Like they took him
Yeah,
back to some kind of a camp or a makeshift shelter. Is that right?
yeah, they took him back to their camp, wherever it was, in the mountains, middle of nowhere.
Yeah, because we hear this a lot on David Paulides missing 411 cases, like I've said to you before in the past, where young children with no shoes on their feet turn up miles away from where they were taken, and then they come back talking of these hairy-looking humans that sheltered them from the rain and protected them from the elements. Well, this isn't behaviour that you would find from a bear, and if they're describing these things as human-looking, covered in hair, I think that adds to the Bigfoot theory as well, like the Bigfoot's been out there.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree with you.
So how do you think that Bigfoot is able to keep the numbers down? Because people have been seeing these things now for hundreds of years, and they must be breeding to keep the population going. So how is it they're able to keep the numbers down so low that they're still really difficult to find?
They might just be conscious of that,
Yeah.
you
So you
know?
actually think that they're on a conscious level so advanced that it's almost relatable to humans, like very, very close. So yeah, again, another question then. So
I'm sure chimpanzees are intelligent enough to keep track of how many young they're bringing into the world.
yeah, definitely. Even wolves, wolves will do the same, won't they? If their territory is getting destroyed, or the food just isn't available, then they won't birth any more pups. Whereas if food is abundant and they've got lots of environment, lots of wildlife to run around in, hunting and killing, you'll find that the litters are much larger. So yeah, even wolves can do that.
Yeah.
Yep. So have
Yeah,
you
no,
got any? Sorry, go
I
on.
would just kind of, I would relate it most closely to like people,
Yeah.
you know?
I was going to
I
ask. So
don't,
like, my way of thinking really is that humans are the top of the food chain. The second most intelligent thing that we're aware of is probably the great apes. Do you think that Bigfoot fits in between that? So do you think it goes humans, Bigfoot, the great apes? Is that how
probably,
you? Yeah.
probably.
Because a lot of people say that these Bigfoot creatures are cast-offs or a branch that's came away from humans at some point, and in some cases people say they are the missing link. So I was just always interested, like where they fall in terms of intelligence. Like, do they come before apes or somewhere in between?
No, I would say they're somewhere in between, especially if there's recordings of them talking,
Yeah,
and if they are building things out in the woods. Like, who knows? Like, this is the thing. Like, we can just take in all the information, like the anecdotes of like the behavioral stuff and like their physical appearance, and you kind of piece together, I guess, the idea that they're probably in between us and like chimpanzees, or you know.
yeah. I'm gonna get off. Not now, obviously, but after this live is over, Justin, I'm gonna get off and I'm gonna go look at a few of these cases that you've mentioned to me in the past regarding Bigfoot and stuff. What is the one hunter story that you would recommend? Because I know that a lot of people I listen to on these podcasts are hunters. They're out in the wild hunting, and they've had some really amazing experiences. And they always interest me because, like I said, these people are out there all the time. They know the land, and it's highly unlikely that they would be mistaken for a Bigfoot when it's just a normal, everyday animal that we see. So, yeah, hunter stories always fascinate me. What would you recommend?
Well, I like my favorite one is one that you won't be able to find. It's
Okay.
like it's from Alberta. That taxidermist guy told it to me,
Yeah.
Ken Walker. He said that he had met this kid who was out hunting. He had walked off by himself, and he had a rifle with him, and he ended up coming across this Sasquatch creature in the distance. It looked like a male, like a very big Sasquatch creature. He said it scared the crap out of him, and the thing ran at the kid, and the kid apparently fired a shot like over the head of this Sasquatch, and then it turned around and took off. But the kid was like traumatized. And Ken
Yeah.
said when he was talking to him, he could like see the guy was like, the kid was visibly shaken. And, he could tell he wasn't making it up.
Yeah. See, I love those stories because, like I said, those guys are experienced. They're out there all the time, or a lot of the time. They're hunting. They know what to look for. They know the signs, like the ground signs of these animals.
Yeah. Here's the thing, though, is that people always say that, but in Canada, like, the hunting season is so short
Okay.
that, like, they're not out there that as much as you think. And a lot of hunting doesn't even take place in the mountains. It's on like farmland.
Yeah.
People always
So some.
associate like hunters with being like complete wilderness experts, but I know a
Yeah.
lot of I know a lot of good hunters, and I know a lot of like doofus hunters as well.
Yeah.
Like you can't just say that all hunters are just wilderness tracking experts. Maybe they have only been doing it for a year, and
Yeah.
hunting season is short. The people that you should be listening to are the First Nations hunters. The
Yeah.
rules are a little more slack for them. They can go out and
And they
hunt a
are
lot
definitely
more than
people
the
that,
average
that know
person.
how to live off the land and know the changes.
Yeah, for the most part. That's another thing is that like people will say like because somebody's First Nations, they'll know everything. Well, not all. Like the majority of First Nations people here in Alberta don't even live in the mountains. They live in
Yeah.
towns too. Like people have this idea that like because you're something, you are a wilderness master.
Yeah. I understand. I get what you're
The
saying.
people who exist nowadays aren't their grandparents or great grandparents. Like, you know what I mean?
More civilized. They've become accustomed to, like we've just talked about, Wi-Fi and some of these creature comforts. And
Yeah, and like it's the saddest thing because a lot of that First Nations culture is kind of fading away in some parts. Like, it's
yeah.
kind of sad. But like, I'm not trying to be disrespectful or anything, but like the majority of First Nations people where I'm from like aren't tracking experts. They live in the city just like with everyone else. Like,
Yeah, well, I
you know,
experienced that firsthand. Actually, I went to Australia not so long ago, and the Aborigines that are there, they're wearing tracksuits and trainers, and they're not chasing around antelope with spears anymore, and like they used to, or I stupidly, stereotypically imagine them to be. A
I
lot of the
know.
Aboriginal people there now are just living like me and you. So yeah, I get what you're saying there.
Yeah.
Before we dive into the question section of this live, for anybody that's still in the chat there. Get your questions ready, guys, because in the next 10 minutes we are going to jump into the comments. I'm going to read a few of these questions out for me and Justin. I just want to mention something really quickly. That I was out yesterday filming, and a thought came into my mind, and the thought was this: that, and I just want to get your take on this, that every culture and every country around the world has their own belief systems, whether it be Christianity, Buddhism, whatever it may be. And one country might differ from the next country in their beliefs. They won't necessarily agree. But, I mean, for example, India has over 300 million deities, like Brahma, Shiva, Durga. The list is endless. And they believe 300 million deities. But here, traditionally in the UK, we don't believe one. just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. But all around the world, you go speak to any culture, whether it be the people of Afghanistan, in Iraq, Russia, China, and you start talking about Bigfoots and extraterrestrials, UFOs, they will all show you a part in their religion where these phenomena fit in. And I found that very, very interesting, is that the Bigfoot phenomena, the extraterrestrial phenomena, is worldwide accepted. Even Christianity now is trying to fit the existence of extraterrestrials into their belief system. But that's really fascinating, how strong these beliefs are and how old they are, of Bigfoot and extraterrestrials.
I would say, yeah, more like extraterrestrials than Bigfoot, but
yeah,
I mean, UFOs aren't really restricted geographically to anything, you know?
Yeah, it was just a thought that came to my mind yesterday, and like there is many countries that do believe in Bigfoot type creatures, not even if it's not specifically Bigfoot, but like there's a lot of cultures and countries that describe beings very tall, sometimes covered in hair,
wild men,
yeah.
and like in lots of ancient texts, there's talk of giants.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's like modern people kind of like turning the giant thing into like a Bigfoot thing, you know, like kind of interpreting them as Bigfoot creatures, just because they're giant and tall. But I mean, we do know that like there are people who are abnormally tall. There are people who are abnormally short. There's people of all kinds. But I made a video about giants not that long ago, and
do you believe
lots
giants?
of like, yeah, like to an extent, like some people have like these crazy ideas that there's people existed that are like 25 feet tall. Like you see those fake pictures on the internet of like people unearthing these giant skeletons.
Yeah.
But yeah, I believe that there's giants, like there's big people.
And the thing is as well, like if you look back through history, traditionally people were a lot smaller anyway. So you get one person of today's height that's like 7, close to 8 foot. So for example, you got Shaquille O'Neal now, and taking back 200-300 years, maybe a bit longer, people would class him as a giant because traditionally everybody else was generally a lot smaller as well. So maybe it's just a bit of that. I like to think giants existed. I'm not going to lie. I like to think they did. I like to think that they helped build the pyramids and they helped build Stonehenge.
Yeah, I like to think all this stuff existed. Yeah. I like to pretend.
Yeah, that's it.
And we're not gonna. We probably won't know in the near future, though.
I think there's a lot. I think there's a lot of mystery still out there that we are either too stubborn to look into, or we just don't. We don't have the brain cells to take it on board and believe it. But I believe there's a lot of things that happened in the past that, for example, I believe that civilizations, the further we go back, didn't necessarily get worse in time with technology. I believe that some civilizations back in the day were pretty much not far off from where we were now, but in their own way.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I don't know. I'm just kind of thinking of like the idea, like it's become really common nowadays. These, I guess, ideas that civilization is like way older than what we
imagined,
or had written about in like textbooks. You know, there's a lot of like you've heard of Graham Hancock?
Yeah.
And he writes a lot about like civilization being like way older, like pre-ice age.
That's the guy that, it might not be the guy, actually I might be wrong here in saying this, but somebody that I was listening to on a podcast was talking about how the Sphinx in Egypt is way older than the pyramids. And some people actually believe that when the Egyptians rolled up in Egypt, they saw the Sphinx and thought, oh my god, this could have only been built by a god. And then they built the pyramids in respect of the Sphinx, but the Sphinx was there before. Have you heard that?
Yeah.
And then that obviously begs the question, who put the Sphinx there?
Yeah, that's a big one. The Sphinx is probably the most popular like
Yeah,
idea or like example of that.
because they've done carbon
Civilization.
dating on that Sphinx apparently, and it comes back that it's thousands and thousands of years older than the pyramids.
Hmm.
Strange.
There's also those weird artifacts that have been dug up that seem to be like of like very advanced technology.
Are you talking from
Like
Egypt or just around the world, or?
there's that one. I have to look up what it's called. It looks like a bunch of like gears, almost like a clock or
Yeah, I've
something.
seen that.
The Antikythera mechanism or something like that.
And I suppose we don't have any idea what that was used for.
I,
That
I
must be
have
still
no
a mystery.
idea.
No, not you personally. I'm glad you asked, Benny. I've got it right here, look. Yeah, no, it's fascinating. Right, I'm going to jump into these comments now. So if you guys want to get your questions ready, like I said, for me and Justin, and I'll pick a few out before we call it a night. So I'm
Okay.
just going to make my way back. So there's one here from Camping Chronicles, and he asks, or she asks, sorry, whoever that may be, forgive me. Where do you think Bigfoot would live? Cave or nest or different? That's quite an interesting question.
Yeah, I don't know. It's probably like I can't say it could be like 50-50. It depends if there's like a cave that's suitable for, you know, living in
Yeah.
long term
There's
or
people talk about nests all the time, like, and this confuses me. I can't imagine that. Is there any other examples of apes building nests? Maybe I'm just unaware of this, but I can't imagine they would build a nest. For me personally, I would think cave, but
well, like most great apes that are out there right now don't live in caves,
yeah,
you know?
exactly. Yeah, that's a great point. It just, for me, it's harder to believe that they're building nests. I don't know why that is. I could be completely wrong.
Depends what you classify as a nest. If you're thinking like a bird's nest, or like they'll make like a probably a bedding area on the ground,
Yeah.
you know? That's the extent of what the nest probably is.
Just really
Maybe
quickly as
make
well, while
maybe
I'm
make
looking at
some
this.
sort of blind to
Yeah.
hide in.
Do you think that they climb trees then, Justin? Do you think they could be building some of these nested areas up in trees? Because a lot of people do talk about seeing Bigfoots up in trees, which is, again, something that I find quite difficult to believe.
I don't think they build nests in trees.
No, not necessarily nests, but do you believe that Bigfoot are capable of climbing trees? Justin, are you there? Okay, so we've lost Justin for the time being. I'm going to bring him back 1 second. Can you guys in the comments still see me? Am I good? If you can just leave me a quick comment there. If somebody in the comment... Justin, you're back. Can you hear me?
I'm back. Yeah,
Awesome. What
gotcha.
happened?
The Wi-Fi
You
went
went
down
building
there
a
for a
nest, didn't you?
second. No,
You went building
no.
a nest just to see if it could be done.
No. I like obviously primates can climb trees. They have the dexterity to be able to do that. So if they
Yeah.
do, who knows? One could just randomly decide to climb a tree, just like a person
Yeah.
can.
Shane Winfro says that gorillas build nests. See, we learn something new every day. I didn't know that, so that's intriguing. Fascinating that a gorilla would build a nest. I never knew that. Susan Belfast says that she thinks they sleep in thickets and caves underground. Again, I can picture that. Some great things coming forward here. So sorry, Justin, to keeping you waiting, mate. I'm just
Yeah,
going to
no,
read.
it's fine.
This one's for me. Ben, have you found any Bigfoot signs, like stick signs? I have a pic of one next to spring. Have you found any Bigfoot signs, like stick signs? I can't say that the Bigfoot. I mean, I'm not a big believer in stick structures or tree structures. Again, I always say this on my videos, is that I do show you guys whatever I come across that may be considered a stick structure or a tree structure, because I know there's a lot of people out there that do believe that. So just because I necessarily don't believe it, I still do show them in my videos. And so yeah, the answer would have to be yes. I have found things that a lot of you guys would consider to be stick sign, but for me personally, I can't say there were anything other than natural forces involved. So someone else has said the Sphinx has 300,000 years of rain erosion on it. Crazy.
Yeah, I've heard something crazy like that too. Like, that's significantly older than
yeah,
like I guess the last ice age, or like the end of the ice age.
Again, from Yorkshire Explorer, who is commenting all the time on these lives, so thank you, Yorkshire Explorer, for doing that. Really appreciate that. All these drawings on cave walls dating back thousands of years. Not everybody can be wrong. Something is out there. This is a common belief now. Like, I say this over and over again, and I'm sorry if I'm droning on people, but you go back to like even not that far, even the early 80s, 70s, the belief of UFOs and extraterrestrials was frowned upon, and you'd have to be a very brave person to speak openly about that. But now, everybody is jumping on the bandwagon, and like I said earlier in this live, is that even Christianity now is trying to find a place in their religion for extraterrestrials, because it is becoming the main belief that we are alone and that we are being visited. Do you want to add anything to that, Justin?
I was just thinking about like I know it's really big in like ancient Indian culture. There's lots of like depictions of flying machines.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever heard of that. They call them like Vimanas or something like that. I'm gonna look it up here. Yeah.
Also, as well, like figures with big heads. That's quite a common
Yeah.
cave painting.
Yeah, so there's lots of depictions of these weird, like, almost like acorn-shaped craft. Some of them are different, but like, I do think that's weird why they would even like imagine that back then without maybe like seeing something of the sort.
And I get the fact that people have imaginations, people can think things up. I'm an artist myself. I can just pick up a pencil and draw something from the top of my head. But the fact remains is those fundamentals of what I'm drawing, even though it doesn't exist and I've made it up on the spot, the fundamentals of what I'm drawing I have seen elsewhere, whether it be the formation of two arms, a head, two eyes. You know, I could put that on a monster that doesn't exist, but the fundamentals of that shape and those elements of the drawing I've seen before. And so when people say, oh, but these ancient people were just using their imagination, I get that, and it's easy to make something up, but the fundamentals of what you're drawing, you didn't just pluck from thin air. Like, people with extra large heads might have been made up, but these long arms with like 4 fingers, etc., they must have seen some of this somewhere, I believe. That's my own personal opinion, and I'm sure that a few people will disagree, but I believe that early humans had contact.
Yeah. What do you think of the idea of like, some people think that there's like UFO craft that have been like buried in the ground and like buried under pyramids and stuff like that?
Yeah, I believe that. I do believe that. I mean, I've seen something recently actually where there was an anomaly at sea. Have you seen the anomaly? It kind of looks like the old, what's the big ship in Star Wars called? People will start commenting right now because I should know this, but there's an anomaly out at the sea. I think it's the Bering Sea or something like that. Baltic Sea? The Baltic Sea anomaly?
Baltic?
Yeah, I'm thinking it's the Baltic Sea anomaly. I could be wrong. But there's a really strange artifact that's down there at the bottom of the ocean, and I think it's just too deep for us to get down there and explore, but it's got a very man-made shape to it.
I think I know what you're talking about. I think I've seen that picture before. There's lots of weird stuff underwater like that.
I think that's where they're going to be, mate. I think if they are here, that's where they're going to be.
It's a good hiding place.
Yeah. It's like we spoke about before, and I said to you, try to imagine the Earth with no water. like how the Earth would look with no water. It'd be like a
Yeah.
half-eaten apple. There'd be so many caves and caverns and places for you to hide that it'd be almost impossible to be discovered.
Hmm.
So yeah, I'm sorry if I didn't manage to go through all the questions there. You guys have been awesome tonight, so thank you for doing that for me. I hope you've all really enjoyed this live chat with me and Justin. I know that a lot of you at the start of this live were saying it's always a great pleasure when me and Justin get together, and for me as well, I really do appreciate you coming on, Justin, and having these chats with me. I'm
Yeah.
sorry about the internet connection early on, guys. I did warn you, and there's no promising that on future lives it won't happen again. But so far, up to this point, we just had that one minor blip, which to me is a godsend, given how bad my internet connection is. So I'm gonna call this a night now, guys. I'm gonna wrap this up and just thank you all for being here with me. Thank you all for supporting Mountain Beast Mysteries and the 401 Files. Justin, as always, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure. You take care of yourself, and I'm sure it won't be long again before we're back on another live, chatting about some of these weird and wonderful things that we all love to talk about.
Yeah. Thanks, Ben.
Yep, no worries. Take it easy, dude, and I'll speak to you not too long away from now. So yeah, we'll get together. We'll do this again.
Sounds good. See you
Awesome.
guys.
See you later on.